Christine Tezak has been scouring all 801 pages of this bill. She is the Senior Energy Policy Analyst at Robert W. Baird & Company. Christine, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Do you agree with Senator Cardin that these placeholders are sort of necessary, this vagueness, as the only way to reach the finish line, like he said?
Well, I think it worked rather well for the House Democrats when they held that stuff back, sort of got some stuff pre-negotiated, and then brought that forward closer to the moment that they came to markup. It gives them the opportunity to be flexible, to keep people engaged. If they put numbers out there and people don't like them, then people might leave.
Right.
And so they might not want to have those conversations, and you might have more trouble getting people together to talk about voting for the bill. If it's still in flux, then you still give people the opportunity to stay engaged.
Okay, so do you agree that this lack of information on how allowances will be allocated is a strategy? I mean, Waxman-Markey didn't come out with details until much later.
I think it's part of their strategy, but I think the one thing we can already take away from it is if we're going to auction 25% of the emissions credits instead of 15, already it says everybody's getting less.
Right.
And that's absolutely inconsistent with what moderate Democrats have been asking for, which is actually more allocations for coal-fired utilities in the Midwest as well as energy-intensive industries.
Okay, so it does include cap and trade. There's a lot of talk about waning support for cap and trade. Are you getting any sense of whether there's any real support for a carbon tax, or is that just a red herring?
I just think a carbon tax is too much of a lift. To go from having a cap and trade system in the House and then trying to conference a bill that is a carbon tax, I think is really, really more that can realistically be considered in early 2010, which is about when I think we get to conference on this legislation. So I think they're going to stay with cap and trade to the extent they can. Where I think that the Democrats are vulnerable with the bill in the stage it's in, we're seeing a lot more government programs. They've got to be funded from something, and either it's through the auctions or it's going to be through taking allocations and giving them actually to programs that don't have a compliance obligation and away from companies that do. I think it makes it harder to bring people together.
Okay, how about the EPA provision? It leaves open the possibility EPA can step in and regulate greenhouse gases. Are you surprised by that? Doesn't barring the EPA from this, isn't that necessary for businesses to support this?
Oh, I think it's necessary for a lot of people who really care about climate change. The Clean Air Act in its current form is a poor vehicle for regulating greenhouse gas emissions. And if you look at the Waxman-Markey bill, greenhouse gases were going to be accepted specifically for most of those, the vast majority that I could figure were worthwhile, was completely exempted. And it was only going to be regulated under the new Title 7. So Mrs. Boxer has left that to the side, and it may come back. But I tell you one thing, Public Power was out last week saying they were absolutely not going to support legislation that did not provide relief from greenhouse gases also being regulated under the other Clean Air Act titles. That is a very powerful lobby. Max Baucus, for example, is very sympathetic to their concerns. So I don't see that as a way of bringing people together. Leaving that out and not providing that backstop or that certainty, I don't think strengthens her bill at this point.
Okay. Tell me about natural gas. Very little mentioned in the House bill. We heard Tyler talk about what is in this bill. Do you see any more provisions affecting natural gas in here?
Well, I think one of the things that we can credit Senator Boxer with in terms of extending an olive branch to other legislators who are not as enthusiastic about this bill is the provisions she has added to incentivize power companies in particular to use natural gas by converting their existing facilities from coal, actually taking down old coal plants and substituting that capacity with natural gas. That is something that folks have been looking for both on the utility side as well as on the natural gas side. But she's also left out the whole opportunity to use natural gas in transportation fuels. And that is something that I know Senator Reid has been paying a lot of attention to. So we'll see where that goes. I think it's a good first step. I think it's one of the things that we can point to and say, yes, Senator Boxer has addressed issues that people have raised. But whether it offsets everything else, I don't feel it yet. I don't feel that way about nuclear either.
But you think provision regarding transportation with natural gas might end up included in here?
I know that Senator Reid cares about it a lot. If it's not included in committee, I would certainly be looking for it to reappear later.
Okay. How about nuclear? We heard Tyler talk about this. This bill does talk about incentives for construction. What do senators who want nuclear want to see here in addition to what we're seeing so far?
An expanded loan guarantee program to build new facilities. Every study you look at, whether it's EPRI, whether it's EPA, you look at a huge expansion of nuclear capability. But nobody ever talks about how that happens. And, you know, if you're going to have a government program, you've got to create the opportunity for Wall Street to get comfortable with risk on what is essentially new technology deployment. And the ask was for loan guarantees. And those were given in the 2005 Energy Policy Act. But now the plants are more expensive. So Senator McCain, for example, definitely says he wants an expanded loan guarantee program. Senator Murkowski has also said she supports that. Mrs. Boxer has not gone anywhere near that far yet. Talking about a waste study and talking about the extending the life of current plants is good, but that's not what people have asked for.
Okay. How about a clean coal element? Is there one in there?
Yes, we've got a lot of work on carbon capture and sequestration, its deployment, its commercialization. The funding mechanisms are a little less clear right now. It has the potential to be a bit broader, actually, than what was in the House bill. But again, it's one of those classic placeholder issues. All of the CCS provisions refer back to a Section 124 that's not defined yet. So I think that that is something that people realize needs to be supported that hasn't been flushed out yet. So it's encouraging, like the natural gas provisions.
Right. What's your sense of these defections, this little rift that's going on with some of the business organizations? The Chamber of Commerce had 3 companies quit, National Association of Manufacturers. Can that impact this debate?
I think so. I think what it does is it reinforces that business wants some sort of resolution to this. And in my view, the path to resolution is more in the middle than where this bill looks like it's taking right now. And I think what you're seeing is you're going to see certain elements of the business community say, look, this is madness. And regulating carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases under the existing Clean Air Act is really an outcome nobody wants. In fact, if there's consensus anywhere, I think that's it in Washington. So at some point, you know, you got to figure, is the enemy the perfect the good of the enemy? And they really want to get something done. If they can push this in a more moderate direction, it has a chance. But this morning, we're going to go to the left first.
Right. So what does the debate do to the U.S. Position standing at the table in Denmark in December?
Well, I think Senator Inhofe's right. I think we get a bill out of committee, and I think that that is something that the administration will take with them to Copenhagen. There's really just no time between healthcare and budget and possibly financial services reform to get this done in conference by Christmas. I just think it's very unrealistic. But I think that they can come back, and they're going to be pressured to move it. Because if healthcare remains problematic and if the economy remains better in theoretical intangibles but not quite in people's pocketbooks, there's a real possibility that the Democrats' majority could wane a bit. They're probably going to still be in the majority, but will they have 60 in the Senate? So it's really going to be do or die, I think, in early 2010.
Okay, we'll be watching. Christine Tezak, Robert W. Baird & Company, thank you.
Thank you.